welcome back to another episode on the podcast. And this time I'm going to be talking to Saurabh, जिसका transformation you must have seen over on the internet. People had a lot of questions, people had a lot of doubts around the transformation. They wanted to look like him, they had some doubts about him. So we'll be covering it all in today's episode. Hi Saurabh, how are you?
Hi, Vanith. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing perfectly fine. So, first thing, your transformation post went viral. Everyone had a lot of questions. Plus, but I would also like to know your context, your own insight on how it went. How did you feel about your own transformation? Let's keep up the viral part aside. People obviously like to see something transformative and something which is like quite shocking to them. They have questions around it. But how did you feel about your transformation from the point you started till the point you reached that particular shoot day?
Yeah. So I'll just start with my brief introduction. I'm in Merchant Navy. I'm sailing as a deck officer, and I'm in this field since 2013. So basically, I'm just going on ships for 6 months, and then I'm on vacations for 4 5 months, like that.
Okay.
So my first fitness journey started back in 2019. I had a friend who was into gym, so I joined the gym together with him. But the training pattern was on and off. So the first lockdown happened in 2020. I got married, and then I started getting fat. I was getting out of shape a lot. So that was the time when I decided to take the plunge and enroll with Chirag. Uh, that was in 2020. So that is when my first transformation took place.
Okay.
Again, I joined the ship, came back, enrolled with Chirag again. That is when my second transformation took place.
Okay.
So all the work that you're seeing that I did with Hardik. So I enrolled with Hardik in the October last year. So it took 4 months. So all the transformation that you're seeing is a work of couple of years, which people think took
Yeah.
only couple of weeks.
Yeah. But like based on it's sort of compounding, right? You compounded on your efforts year after year. And like what was a turning point? What was the starting point which made you take that step that you have to change something about your routine or lifestyle?
Again, the first lockdown I think was very difficult for everybody. And gyms were closed and there was very less physical activity. And I was a skinny kid right from the beginning. So my main focus was, just to gain muscles. So जो भी लोग बोलते हैं कि eat more, तुम पतला है, so you start eating a lot, but the belly keeps on getting bigger.
Mm.
So I decided that this is too much. I need to take some steps. So I was following Chirag on Twitter for a good amount of time. So I decided that he's a guy that I should look to, and I enrolled with him. So I think I got some good result within 2 months itself.
Mm.
Uh, just by home workouts, a pair of dumbbells, and a good diet. So I think that was a turning point.
All right. So this should provide enough context to people who were actually wondering that how is it possible in just 16 weeks
Right.
or 18 weeks, right? Because they just saw the starting point, they didn't know about the actual training history that you have like done, the efforts you have put in the past. So now the context is much more clearer after you just shared your story here. And
Yeah.
the last transformation like went through with Hardik. So what did your training routine look like when you were training with him?
So I came back from trip in October last year. So as Chirag stopped coaching, so I knew who will be my next coach. I was following Hardik for a long time as well. So I knew Hardik is going to be my next coach. So I enrolled with him. So the basic idea was, I have to just gain back the previous physique. That was my only target. But Hardik, being Hardik, he said the target is to beat your previous physique.
Okay.
So I was just on board with it.
All
So
right.
the training pattern was basically I was training for 5 days a week. The split went push, pull, legs, rest, upper body, legs, and rest, which I think was a perfect sweet spot for me. I was getting enough rest and I was training hard enough.
All right.
And Hardik made it very clear, given the time frame which we have, a limited time frame of 4 months, and the goal that we have, you need to train really hard, and you have to track your workouts very closely, and you have to either match it or better that session by session, week by week. No matter increase the reps, increase the form, and whatever we need to keep improving and focus on the strength. So that was, I think, the game-changing moment for me, and all thanks to Hardik for that.
I'm pretty sure a lot of nuances were discussed during this transition or transformation, right? And based on training or the diet part, correctly speaking about the training part, you mentioned that you have to keep a close track of the workouts, how you're performing, and when you're also performing. That also matters when you're trying to optimize everything around in your environment to get the best results out there, right? So, I would also like to know, like towards the initial part of the weeks, I'm sure you must be eating a little bit more compared to the last part of the week, towards the end of your program. So how did you feel about training in the gym based on those set target calories? Because Chirag, I remember, shared some calorie ranges that you were eating this much calories on average for the first half, and this much calories for the second half. So how did you feel about consuming that much food or tracking that much food, and how did your performance get affected in the gym?
Right. So I was already used to tracking my calories because I had enrolled with Chirag twice. So this time it was pretty easy. So one more good thing that happened was I enrolled with my wife as well. She enrolled under PFC coach Priya. So initially, when we started at the same time, we were both excited that a diet has started, and so let's experiment. So we were daily trying to try out new recipes, like, oh, let's try chicken soup today. Let's try potato fries instead of rice, air fried, and all those things we were experimenting. But as and when the journey went ahead, my carbs started reducing,
Mm.
and I started to see visible abs. So uh, towards the end, I had to spice things up because there was no more carbs in my diet towards the end. So I had to, make my salad a peri peri salad, make my diet coke into a masala diet coke. Whatever,
Mhm.
just fills up my stomach and make things interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
And what about the performance in the gym? Like, did it get affected? Eating, like, obviously you are eating lesser calorie, your carb intake is quite low, so you experience subtle differences, at least in some ways or the other. So how was that transition for you when you were like towards the end of your prep?
So actually, that was very surprising because from the first week till the 10th week, even though I was on a deficit, my performance in the gym just skyrocketed. I was gaining strength. Even I was confused. Either I'm tracking something wrong or something is wrong with the machines, but I was gaining strength session by session, and my inches at the waist was reducing.
Hmm.
So I was pretty much surprised. And I think somewhere around 10th or 12th week, that is when, I reached that this is as the carbs started reducing and the calories reduced.
Hmm.
So then we realized that, okay, I'm losing strength in some of the movements. So I think Hardik course corrected in most of my exercises. He told me to, hold back in few movements, and he was monitoring my training very closely.
All right.
So yeah, towards the end, I think it was getting difficult also. Even though I was training very hard, I was starting to get dizzy at times in at the gym, and towards the last week, uh, it was pretty difficult. I remember telling Hardik that, okay, I'm really, really feeling dizzy. Is this normal? And
Mhm.
Hardik goes like that, Chernobyl scientist, perfectly normal phenomena.
Yeah.
I knew this will happen. So, yeah.
All right. Sounds interesting. And I just wanted to ask on this, have you tried this kind of routine before in the past, or was this your first time trying out a very strict, I would say, like a relatively stricter routine and getting down to those ultra lean levels? So was this something that you have tried out in the past, or was this your first time?
No, this was my first time. I think previously, two times with Chirag, I think we were just going with the body recomposition thing,
Hmm.
and I was traveling a lot in those times, so it was not that strict. But this time, it was Hardik midway when I was sending him weekly updates. So he just vaguely mentioned that, oh, your photo shoot ready. So and also I saw a post of Chirag towards the end of January. He did a photo shoot. So
Yeah.
all that started clicking, and then I said, okay, why not? Let's prepare for a photo shoot, for which I did not know
Mhm.
needs a separate preparation.
Yeah. And
found out in those last 10, 12 days.
yeah. So the last 12 days are even more important in terms of like tracking every macro that you're consuming. It affects how you're going to look on the final shoot day, or it can also be called as the peak week, right? Where you're trying to optimize those things. But I'm sure it must have been a fun experience. So yeah, and about after the training routine, on average, how much time did you usually spend in the gym? Because I know there are people who also want to know, like, not that it matters to them, not that they have to copy or imitate those things, but people do have this tendency to know everything, right? That this guy must have done something, so I can probably try or imitate or something like that. But you told me your like overall general split, right? What you're following, but how much time were you actually dedicating to your training or the physical activity throughout the day? Or was it just limited to the gym workouts? I do remember there was some cardio here and there throughout the week, but like what was it for you?
Yeah, so just to give you in context that I'm in merchant navy, so most people think that once I'm home, I'm 24 and by 7 free. I have full time for myself, which is not the case. As soon as I came back from my shift, I had regular classes from 9 to 5, and I was driving 2 hours a day. So the only option for training for me for first 2.5 months was in the evening. So once I was done with my classes at 5 o'clock, I straight up came back home, had my pre-workout, and went to the gym around 6 to 7. So initially there was no cardio because it was not needed. I was progressing pretty nicely without cardio. Uh, the target of steps, although was around 8,000 steps, 8 to 10,000 steps. I was following short on those initially because of the so many classes and examinations. So I was but updating Hardik all while along, and then he was course correcting. So towards the end, we started adding cardio. So the whole training part, including warm up, took around 1 hour 15 minutes. So slowly he added, okay, once I was falling short on the steps, he said, okay, add 10 minutes of cardio. And then next week became 20 minutes, and towards the end, it became 40 minutes.
All
So I
right.
think overall, I was spending 2 hours in the gym in the end.
Okay. Fair enough. And towards the end of the prep, like you said, the cardio was increased, and you were probably spending more energy and eating less at the same time. So obviously there would be signs of dizziness that you also mentioned before. You will probably feel a little bit weak on the weak side. And you just also mentioned about the food combination that you were trying, but what changed in terms of like food selection? Those were certain food items, those were some two or three food items that you mentioned. What about your protein intake? How were you trying to cover it, or how did you cover it throughout the prep that you were following from week 1 to week 15 or 16?
So yeah, so when Hardik gave me the diet plan, so it had a lot of options. So so जो शुरू में excitement होती है, okay, this is a diet, I can try poha, I can try upma, I can eat breads. So initially, first couple of weeks, so we were trying everything. Okay, आज ब्रेड खा लेते हैं, नेक्स्ट ब्रेकफास्ट में ये खा लेते हैं. So breakfast basically included bread with some egg whites and eggs. Lunch had some chicken and rice, and dinner again had some chicken and chapati. So initially we were experimenting a lot, but I realized that having too many options, is wasting a lot of time,
Hmm.
and वो decision fatigue में mode में आ जाते हैं, आज क्या खाना है. So I narrowed down to two of my favorite things which I love eating was chicken biryani and chicken fried rice.
Okay.
So from second week till I think 12 or 14th week, every single day I had chicken biryani, chicken fried rice, straight.
All right.
And morning breakfast were like eggs and bread, simple.
Okay. And what about your vegetable intake and fruit intake? How are you tracking those, or how are you like going about it throughout the entire journey?
Right. So Hardika told me to have one or two bowls of vegetables or salads with lunch and dinner. So initially, when the carbs were high, I did not feel any need to, increase those.
Mhm.
So I was just having one or two bowls with lunch and dinner. But as and when the calorie started to reduce towards the end, so So that small bowl became a huge bowl, and I started to add spice in that. And when I was having too much of protein towards the end, because there was no carbs, and Hardik had increased the protein intake.
Right.
So basically, to improve the digestion part, we had to add in lots of vegetables like lettuce, broccoli, carrot. So just so that my fiber intake is proper and my digestion is good.
All right. I was going to ask the next question, which was around hunger, because obviously you will have to focus on filling your stomach up when you are going towards the end of the week. No matter, even though you are trying to find ways to tackle that hunger, right? There's still going to be certain signs that you're still not feeling up to the mark or not feeling as per your previous levels, even though like you carefully optimize every single thing. So was that the case with you? Like even after optimizing everything, having a big bowl of salad, having enough water, adding on everything, enough protein, all those things. Did you still feel hungry about after going about this routine? And what did you do in that case?
So initial 8 to 10 weeks, I don't think I had any problem. I
Okay.
never felt hungry for some reason
Mhm.
because given the history of my diet, I actually felt that this is normal and this is how much I should eat. Even though I was having some here and there diet cokes, but towards the end when the difficult part started, so then I had to increase the number of diet cokes that I was having, like with every meal, just so I fill up my stomach. And I think I was having a big bowl of salads also
Mhm.
towards the end. So yeah, towards the end it was very difficult. I won't lie, but I did not feel for the first initial 8 to 10 weeks that I was getting hungry. Only towards the last part, uh, the peak week, as you said. So that
Mhm.
was a difficult part. Yeah.
All right. My next question was going to be around that your whole process. What was the most challenging thing that you encountered? Be it training related, be it nutrition, it could be mindset related as well. So, what was the most challenging part or parts that you felt throughout the journey?
I think there were a couple of challenges. The first one was managing my studies
Okay.
because once you start training, the only thing that you think about is nutrition and diet, and then all the other things go secondary. And once you start seeing progress, you're like, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I will do. Rest all things can take a back seat. But I had to clear my exams as well. So I was informing Hardik as well that I have exams on so and so date, so I won't be training 3 days before this exam or 2 days before this exam. He was just waiting for my exams to get finished, and he said after that we'll go all in. So cool बोलने के लिए तो अच्छा लगता है कि हाँ ठीक है we'll go all in.
Hmm.
But once we went all in, then I realized okay what I was getting into. The last 10 days were
Hmm.
pretty challenging for me. uh, I had to shift my workouts from the evening to morning time so that I'm done with the most difficult part of the day, and I have some time for myself, for studies and everything. So that is how I manage. The second challenge was, once you're attending classes and people come to know that you're on a diet, so they they will target you no matter what.
Hmm.
They will force feed you samosas and everything, and and mock you or whatever that is. So one thing was, handling that peer pressure. People were going out drinking, and then you have your diet coke handy, and just take out your diet coke, and they were like, "Kya kar raha hai ye?" So I had to, tackle few social, interactions as well.
Hmm.
So I think these were the two most challenging things.
All right. So, adding on to what you just said, I'm getting wo full Hardik wala energy from what he just said to you, right? Ki he was waiting for that point कि exam हो जाए, then we'll go all in. So, and you guys did pretty well in terms of changing or transitioning from the starting point to the end point. The transition overall, even though you have worked hard in the past, you have done training before, all of those things combined, it's still a pretty daunting task, I would say, overall, to just go through that peak week, especially if you're going through it for the first time. If it's your first experience, it's going to be challenging, and you will probably remember it. And if you probably try to do it again, you will remember that what kind of things that you're facing, it will give you some kind of, like, I would say, context on how you're going to feel about those particular things, because you can just read about it, but you won't understand that this may feel like this. So you got a first hand experience in that case. So moving on to the day when you were going for that photo shoot, right? The pictures that I saw and uploaded as well, you did that. So like, how was that day about? Like, what did you do close to that day? I won't be asking to the exact number or the values that you probably manipulated your carbohydrate intake, how much water you drank, and all those things, but like, how did it feel in general, let's say T minus 2 days around that photo shoot?
So yeah, so I think you perfectly chose the right time. T-2
Yeah.
was the day when I, started feeling dizzy. At one point of time, I think towards around 3 p.m., my hands were numb, my legs were numb, and I was super lightheaded. That was the time I messaged Arthik, what is this? Kya ho raha hai? I'm fine. So he's like, yeah, that's totally fine. So you'll be fine. And, he was very closely monitoring my carbs and, photographs. So T-2, I started sending him photographs post dinner, post early morning empty stomach, post lunch, post dinner again. So that is when he compared two photos. He said, okay, this is yesterday's empty stomach photo, and this is post dinner after having some carbs. So I was actually surprised that, so much difference is made just by carb loading.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised that, these things happen. So once we reached T-1, I remember Hardik said, okay, tomorrow is the shoot. So add in 30 grams of carbs in your lunch. So why I'm mentioning is this because that chicken biryani which I had after 10 days of carb depletion was the most fulfilling chicken biryani I have ever had. Even though that was not tasty, but that was the best chicken biryani ever. And then we started loading carbs in dinner as well. He told me, okay, have so much carbs and keep honey and rice ready for tomorrow morning. He sent in the protocol once we arrive in the photo shoot. So he told me to keep things ready and prepare. I remember towards the night, Hardik was so stressed that he transferred his stress on me also. That, okay, let's see how it goes. Because from once the plan starts, you go like, okay, 16 weeks to go. Once the peak week starts, you're like, okay, 12 days to go.
Yeah.
We were down to hours, 36 hours to go, 28 hours to go. I still remember Hardik's message where he says, don't hate me for these last 10, 12 days because we are going to deplete you. So I think the whole photo shoot experience was magical. And I'm really grateful that I actually took this decision of having a photo shoot. I'm grateful to Hardik because once we reached there, I remember again, I was having rice and honey. Although it sounds weird, but it tastes amazing. Rice and honey, and then for the pump, I was just having some citrulline malate with some pink salt just before 10 to 15 minutes before the shoots, just to get those proper pump. So once the photo shoot started, I think I was just getting in the groove, because how they play a music in the background, EDM song is playing, and then you're just getting the makeup done, just preparing. Even though I panicked because this was my first photo shoot and I get really awkward in front of camera. Oh, but Hardik had sent in the poses as well that, you can go through these poses and these are mandatory. So aim for those first and then we'll take it. So I think it was an amazing experience.
All right. So post photo shoot, what was the first thing that you did? I'm sure you must have eaten something. Like you wouldn't have gone just and continued with more depletion and more everything. I'm sure you must be eating a little bit better now, a little bit more now. So what's your current routine looking like post the transition from the day of photo shoot?
Yeah. So once my photo shoot was done, so Hardik was like, I'll send in the protocol for the post photo shoot, what we need to follow. I just straight up told him, okay, I'm going for a cheat meal. Please excuse me for one meal. After that, I'm going to follow that protocol.
All right.
So I went, I had a cheat meal, and then, but he said, go easy on it. because your body is delicate. Your body fat percentage was in single digit, so we need to give in proper nutrition.
Yeah.
So as of now, we are just somewhere around 1500 calories on rest days,
Mm-hmm.
and on the training days, I'm around 1750 calories.
All
So
right.
we're just adding in few carbs, which was, I think, similar to what I had in the initial few weeks of training. So just slowly ramping up the carbs.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it must be feeling a lot better compared to the,
Absolutely, I'm
yeah.
just loving it.
Yeah, I think you get a whole new sense of respect for the food as well once you go through this process. Plus, people who do this consistently over the years, I believe, the same thing from speaking from my own perspective or from my own experience. The first time I somewhat did something like this, so it was very super challenging. The next time wasn't so challenging, but I because I knew what I was getting into, so I was prepared. I knew in my head that this is something which I have to do, and this is what it will get by the end of the day. If I do certain things, XYZ, anything, those numbers change, calories change, carbs change based on the time and everything, all those things. But I do have a like a sense of respect for people who keep doing this every year. Even talking about those athletes, right, who go on for bodybuilding shows and all those things, they are doing something similar along these lines, and they are doing it year after year after year. So that is
Right.
something which is definitely inspiring to me at least. Could be inspiring to many of us out there, but yeah, I just wanted to add on to what you just said. And you guys did a like a superb job in terms of transitioning from day one to the final day. And I'm very confident that Hardik would have been very relieved once that photo shoot would have been done. The stress
Yeah,
levels
yeah.
that you talked about, right? So yeah, great job, you guys. So like in terms of setting up goals related to your health, fitness, or maybe physique as well, what have you or what you have in mind? What are you targeting in the upcoming weeks, months, or years?
So I've just renewed my plan with Hardik again till the time I join back my shift,
Mhm.
because I think this is a critical period where, once I'm done with the photo shoot and I just leave the diet, so I just don't want to go and start, binge eating things, because then I will, get out of shape very fast. So I've enrolled with them till the time I get on shift, and, slowly and slowly try to regain that strength that I lost
Mhm.
towards the end, and slowly get towards my maintenance calories. So the plan is again, once I get back from my shift, to beat this physique.
Okay.
So once I'm back, I'll again enroll with Hardik, and we'll try and beat this and see how that goes.
All right. Sounds like a good plan, and all the best for that. And
Thanks.
one more thing from like the before and after. I'm sure you must have gotten like you also mentioned that peer pressure. People are asking you to eat certain things, and I'm sure it is not going to go away anytime soon. It is going to stay, no matter what you do. So sometimes you just have to block the noise, I would say, at times, that you just focus on what you have to do and you get it done. But how do you deal with it on a, I would say, day-to-day basis or maybe week-to-week basis whenever you come across those things? How do you politely say no is what I'm asking you. I do know the answer how to go about it, but I also want to know that what's your take on it, and the audience will definitely find it useful because everyone has to, even though they don't have like a very ambitious goal such as like getting into a single digit body fat percentage, but even though someone is trying to take care of their health, they have to give up on certain things, and that's while that's perfectly fine, the societal norms don't allow them to, so they get back into their old eating habits. So I just wanted to know your take on around this complete phenomenon.
I think my family and my relatives, I think, are quite used to that. So, once you become strict with yourself and, just keep saying no to them. So they have understood that, oh, okay, he's very strict with his diet. So there's no point telling him. But as you mentioned, to friends and colleagues whom you meet at social gatherings. So once I went, I always had my Diet Coke handy, and Hardik had told me that, always keep these things handy. So whenever I was traveling, I was having Diet Cokes with them. And whenever we are going eating out with friends, uh, there's no compulsion to, order alcoholic drinks. You're always free to, order fresh lime soda, masala diet coke, because you just need a glass like this.
Yeah.
If you have a glass, and then nobody's going to force you. So, and whenever I went out, it became a second nature that I'll order grilled protein
Mhm.
diets like grilled paneer, grilled chicken, something like that. But at times, I face this also, like you're going out and then people are forcing, chalo chai pee lete hain, samosa kha lete hain, and at one point it gets too much.
Mm.
So you don't have to hog down 3 4 samosa. You can take one samosa, have a bite, and just leave it. I think this was one technique that I used. So I was having some cup of tea, just having 2 3 sips, and just leave it. There's no compulsion for you to complete that whole thing. So these were the few things that I tried out with friends and colleagues. Relatives and my family members, they already know that, okay, he's very strict, there's no point.
Yeah, so they have accepted that you're not going to change your mind about some
Yeah,
things, the way you eat or function. Uh, that makes complete sense. And sometimes you have to just put your foot down, right? And you have to let people know that you're doing a certain thing a certain way, because that is going to affect your quality of life, and you obviously want to improve it over the years, over the weeks. So there's no other way around it. You can't look for like a very strict protocol or a step-by-step guide to do that. You just have to say no, even though
right,
even though it may sound rude for a while, even though people may like, there's the thing, right? Fit shaming people, that's also a thing apparently. uh,
right.
I never thought that this would come to exist, but it is here, so we can't do
Yeah,
anything about it. We just have to go about our own ways and do those things. But yeah, so before I wrap up the this episode of the podcast, I'm very sure a lot of queries, a lot of doubts would have been answered if someone listens to this one. They will understand what your training routine look like, what your nutrition look like from the start to the end. Then they will have a better understanding of what it actually takes to get there. While that, like, even though it looks appealing on social media and all those things, it people enjoy looking at it. But when it comes to putting in efforts, consistency matters, which you are definitely showed, even with your work routine and your studies, the classes, all those things you mentioned. So I'm like very hopeful that people find value out of it. But I would also
right.
like to know your take. What would you suggest to people who are trying to set up ambitious goals for themselves? Because a lot of people are motivated by that transformation. A couple of my own clients got motivated and they wanted to set a similar or roughly same target for themselves. So that was quite motivating for them. So what would be your word of advice?
Right. So, firstly, I think I would advise that, don't try to follow somebody else's plan, because I'm also getting a lot of messages that, dude, what's your diet? Send me your diet. Even though I send you the diet plan, this whole diet plan was designed by a coach with an experience of training hundreds of clients. And it was totally designed as per my lifestyle, my goals, and you know, how my body was behaving.
Mhm.
So please don't try to follow somebody else's diet. If you have, ambitious goals, then the most easy and the most efficient way is to enroll with a coach, because then in that case you are in that together, and you can always course correct, and the plan will be perfectly designed to suit your needs. uh, because people are asking advices to me also, that okay, you coach me. Like, my knowledge is limited to what Hardik has applied on me. So there are many people who have transformed themselves and they think that okay, अब मुझे सब आता है, I can अच्छे से फैट लॉस करा दूंगा सबका. But my knowledge is limited कि जो मेरे पे apply हुआ and what worked for me. So don't try to get advice from random people. Always, I would strongly suggest, invest in a good coach. I don't think this is a payment. I would never consider this. The fees which you pay to the coach is always an investment that will always compound to you. And secondly, I would say, don't compare and have a realistic expectations, because I can see for myself, my wife, we both are training together. So she's like, तुम्हारे तो abs आ गए, मेरे नहीं आ रहे हैं. And why do you have only 3 sets of leg press in your training plan? Mine has 5 leg presses. Why is like that? Stop
Mhm.
comparing. focus on getting stronger, improving your sessions day by day, week by week, and never lie to your coach. I can give an experience also. Me and my wife are traveling, and you're eating outside, and so my wife goes to Priya that, oh, everything was fine, the diet was on point. But I told Priya separately, I snitched on her that, she did not follow because I know how coach thinks, and, he's breaking her head that I'm putting her on deficit and still she's not losing weight. So try to communicate well with your coach. Never hide anything. And yeah, that's it. Try to train hard, keep your diet on point, and if you have strict goals, be realistic with yourself, be true to yourself. If you're going to the gym to train or socialize, you can prioritize, you know.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
Yeah, so person needs to have a strong intent and a strong realistic expectation setting as well. A coach can definitely help you do that. So like you also said, a coach can be a very helpful, uh, like provide you helpful guidance, insights and everything. It just takes out the guesswork. You can probably do those things on your own, but you will be like spinning your wheels at a certain point, like you will be
Absolutely.
stuck at the same place. So your time is actually important. In
Yeah.
that case, you can definitely consider getting a coach in that sense. But yeah, that's very helpful suggestions and the advice that you provided. And yeah, thanks for joining in.
Thank you for having me, Varnit. Thanks a lot.